Hello everyone, I hope the lighting is going to be good for you guys. It's natural light coming through my dining room window. Oops, see, I just bumped the camera already. I'm going to try and stay as zoomed in as I possibly can, and I'm going to use that blue flower to make sure that I stay in frame, okay? So here we go. This video is so highly requested that I had to do a response. I am talking today about the vitalness of matting or varnishing or finish coating your Reborn doll. I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to show you how. And starting off with the reason why is because now I'm talking about vinyl Reborns. I'm not talking about silicones. Vinyl looks like vinyl. It has a smooth surface. After painting it and rubbing it with, redressing your dolls, it becomes shiny, and it doesn't look like skin. I mean, if you look at your own skin, it's not shiny, it's dull. And the matte coat not only will keep it from getting shiny and take the vinyl look away, but it will also protect your paint. It'll protect it from scratching, from fading, and it'll make the color underneath look more translucent. So I have been asked, I did tutorials about Genesis heat set paints and also about air dry acrylic paints. So I'm going to tell you how to do each one. I'm going to start with the acrylics first. First, you're going to need a dish like this. I use a little Pyrex glass custard dish because you can see through it and you'll be able to tell how thick your mixture is. And you'll know once you're experienced how thick and how thin your varnish should look. So for acrylics, and I always like to apply the mixture onto my mop brush and apply it to the cosmetic wedge and simply pounce. And you start with very small, this is for both air dry and Genesis. Start with very small sections at a time, because you're going to want to inspect every inch of it to make sure the surface is even, okay? And you're also going to want to make sure that there's no debris. You'll see maybe little pieces of the medium that didn't dissolve, so you want to have a toothpick on hand to flick off the debris. And also what you're going to need is a stir stick to take the product out of the jar and put it into this dish. And the other thing, I have two different kinds of cosmetic wedges here. This one feels like your normal spongy, dense, small cosmetic wedge. This one is very, very porous, and it's a little bit more like, it's just more porous. And I like this for the matte varnish because you don't have to rip off the top to give your vinyl more texture. You can, and I'm going to show you this. You really will need to rip off the top because it won't give it any texture at all. So let me see. It's a little difficult to do. You got to use your hands, and you got to make sure that you kind of do it as even as possible, like so. And there's a little bit of mountains here, for lack of a better word, but that's okay because it's going to give it, it's going to get in the creases better that way, but you're going to have a nice texture when you rip the top off. If you don't want those little mountains there, you can just pluck them off with your fingers. But anyway, here we go. Okay, starting with air dry paints. This is the product. Let me make sure you're seeing this. Let me look at the camera. Make sure you're seeing. Yeah. This, it seems as though the glass and tile medium is getting harder and harder to find. I don't know if that means that folk art is discontinuing it or what, but this product, which is Plaid Folk Art Outdoor Matte Sealer, this works just as well. This is a very, very old bottle, and it has everything settled at the bottom. So what I normally do is I normally take something very long and scrape out the real thick part and put it in this glass dish, and I dilute it with distilled water to a medium, about the consistency of, oh gosh, what will I compare it to? You're not going to be able to see through it. You're not going to be able, it's going to look milky, but it's going to be a little bit thicker than your paint. So that's the product that I use for sealing. You can actually use this over Genesis too. This is a good matte varnish, and it does not need to be baked. Okay? So you mix it with a little bit of water. I like distilled water because it doesn't have any minerals in it. And the minerals can affect the surface and the way that the sealer goes on. So I'm going to spend the next part of my discussion talking about what I use to matte my dolls using Genesis. Like I said, you can use this over Genesis paints after you bake the paints. And if you don't feel like baking your varnish, you can use this. It's a little bit more finicky to work with that because what happens is the sponge and the brush will get saturated. You're going to have to change your sponge frequently using the air dry sealer. You're going to have to, because this is going to get coated and it won't work anymore. Also, when you're using outdoor sealer for air dry paints, you're going to need to wash your brush very, very often because it's going to get caked and it's not going to stay clean. So that's kind of a downfall for using the air dry matte varnish, that you're going to have to wash your sponge more and you're going to change your sponge more and you're going to have to wash your brush more. But when you're using Genesis products, you don't need to do that because it's oil based and it doesn't get saturated on the sponge. Genesis matte varnish is, here it is right here. It's extremely thick. I'm going to show you what it looks like. It's actually the texture of wax. And it doesn't spread very easily by itself. So some people take a little bit of this product, put it into a dish, and they use odorless thinner. And this is my little squeeze bottle that I use for my odorless thinner. I use Mona Lisa odorless thinner. So some people mix this, once again, taking it out of the jar with a craft stick and putting it on here and in the bowl, mixing it with your mop brush, and you'll be able to work better with it. But what I like to do instead is I like to take some of this, put it in there, and I like to mix it with this. This is Genesis thinning medium. And you can actually use this just to mat your doll alone if you want. But this, you stir it with your craft stick, and it's thinner. It's much, much thinner. It's thinner than toothpaste. It's kind of like hand lotion. So to me, the best way to mat your doll is to mix Genesis thinning medium along with the matte varnish. And you can even mix a little bit of the odorless thinner in it if you want it thinner, but excuse me, I don't recommend that because you're not going to get the texture that you want if you thin it too much. So once again, using the Genesis matte varnish and the thinning medium, you're going to take it out with the craft stick, put it in the bowl, take it, stir it around and mix it real good, and apply it to your cosmetic wedge and work in very, very small sections at a time. Start with the fingers, you know, both sides, go up to the wrist, you know, and then go up to the arm and so forth. Because this is a little bit, you're going to need to be very aware and very, you're going to need to look very closely at what it looks like on the surface, because it can make it or break it, and your doll is completely painted and you don't want to ruin your doll. So this is a really crucial step, and remember that the Genesis products need to be baked, and they need to be baked twice. And what I do is, after I apply the varnish on the vinyl parts, I wait until the vinyl appears to look dry before I bake it. And in that way, you won't be, when you put the vinyl piece down on your oven on a towel, if it's wet, the varnish is going to be touching the towel, and it's not good. And if you wait too long and the vinyl with the matte varnish on it becomes very chalky looking, that's no good either. So as soon as it looks dry, I'm going to say maybe a half hour, that is when you want to bake it. And I use a New Wave oven, power level 6, which I believe is 250 degrees, for 10 minutes. So I put my parts in there, usually only the arms and maybe one leg, or if I'm lucky, if it's a small doll, 2 arms and 2 legs will fit in the oven at the same time. You don't want your vinyl parts to touch one another, and you don't want it to touch the sides of the metal of the oven. And then I do the head separately. So then once it's done, you let the vinyl cool, and it depends on the temperature in your house, how long it's going to take to cool. It could be as long as an hour, it could be as less as half an hour. And then after it cools, bake it again. But this time, turn the vinyl parts over on the opposite side so that you can make sure that the part that has not been baked facing up will face up. So does that make sense? I hope so. And once you are finished and the doll is cool, you look over your vinyl parts, and if you notice that something looks a little bit rough or a little bit uneven or has some flecks or whatever, you can fix it very easily. And if you miss a spot and you see like that there's a spot that hasn't been varnished, rather than go ahead and bake it again and use the Genesis product, go ahead and touch it up with this product. This is a really good product for touch-ups. So anyway, getting back to the vinyl surface, if you're done baking it and it's cooled and you look at it and there's something that's not quite right about it, you can always take your cosmetic wedge and either apply the air dry varnish if it's a spot that's missing, or if it's a spot that's looking a little flaky, just take the part and take a clean sponge and just do this. Okay, and you'll be amazed at how well this will take care of that. And if it's really flaky and it looks chalky, go over it with this and then bake it again. Bake it one more time. So that's it, guys. It's extremely crucial to matte varnish your dolls. And these are the products that I use. Okay. And I hope this has been helpful. These are my wooden craft sticks, my odorless thinner, and once again, this is the plaid folk art outdoor matte sealer. So I am open to any and all questions. I hope that this has been understandable and helpful. And thank you so much for watching. See you soon.